Okay, this is subsurface mining, and basically when minerals are buried deep underground, we use subsurface mining instead of clearing the surface. Workers dig deep vertical shafts and horizontal tunnels, like you see here. It goes pretty far down, and you have a little mine cart, and then you keep going. You found some more ores, found some diamonds here. Instead of clearing, the major advantage here is environmental. The surface landscape and ecosystems are mostly left untouched, but economically and socially, it's a high risk. It's incredibly expensive to build these deep networks, and it's one of the most dangerous jobs in the world due to like the cave-ins. Like I could just be chilling here, and all of this would fall, and I would die. It's like bad. This is mountaintop removal. What it is in this extreme force of surface mining, where the entire summit or ridge, like you're just seeing now, is exploded off a mountain to reach coral seams buried underneath. So like this, like I would be harvesting this coal right here. What it does is explosives blow off the top of a mountain, and the excess rock is pushed into adjacent valleys. So all the rock would be going into this water, and it's very bad. Some advantages though is it allows mining companies to extract large amounts of coal very quickly in a small workforce. However, it permanently alters the landscape. It buries streams and it pollutes local water with heavy metals. Like all of the coal that was blown up is getting drifted all the way down in this water, and it's really bad. Economic disadvantages are destroys local tourism, lowers property values, and creates long-term health costs for nearby communities. So it's just like all in all, like once again, like kind of bad. Okay, this is open pit mining. Open pit mining is to create giant step bowls in the earth. It's ideal for extracting metals like copper or gold that are scattered over a wide area. Economically, it's a powerhouse because it allows companies to move massive volumes of rock at low cost per ton. The downside, however, is permanent environmental scar. These pits are so massive they can be seen from space. When they are abandoned, they often fill with rainwater that mixes with exposed minerals, creating highly toxic acidic lakes that can threaten local wildlife and water tables for generations. In the scars, basically, whenever they use these chemicals to make this open pit, it's almost impossible to recreate because the chemicals used cannot be undone. And it's just it's pretty bad. Lastly, strip mining is a surface mining method used when resources like coal sit close to the Earth's surface. Think of it basically like peeling back layers of a cake. Massive machines clear away the soil and rock in long strips to reach the minerals underneath. Economically, it's great because it's fast, highly efficient, and safer for miners than going underground. However, the environmental toll is massive. It completely destroys local habitats, causing severe soil erosion like you see here when it's mixed in with the diamonds, and it's very bad, and leaves behind scarred landscape that requires expensive long-term reclamation to fix. So all in all, strip mining, every mining is like kind of bad, but it's low-key like kind of good.
This is a coal power plant. Coal is a fossil fuel burned to heat water to steam. The steam spins turbines that generate electricity. Coal use grew drastically during the Industrial Revolution. A power plant like this releases large amounts of carbon dioxide and can cause air pollution. One way to prevent this is by adding scrubbers to the top of these smokestacks. However, a power plant like this produces a lot of electricity, and it is cheaper compared to other sources of energy. It is also reliable because it does not depend on weather to work. Here is a nuclear power plant. Nuclear energy uses uranium atoms that are split apart in a process called fission. The energy released heats water into steam, which spins turbines and generates electricity. One uranium fuel pellet contains about the same amount of energy as a ton of coal. This power plant produces lots of electricity. and has very low greenhouse gas emissions. It is a very reliable source of energy. However, it creates radioactive waste, which is to be stored securely for long periods of time. A power plant like this is very expensive to build, and accidents have major impacts. One major accident was the incident of Chernobyl. Additionally, a power plant like this has thermal pollution. Heated water is disposed into nearby water systems, heating the ecosystem. Here's water being dumped out from inside the power plant into this body of water. This section shows fracking. Fracking involves pumping water, sand, and chemicals underground to crack rock and release natural gas or oil. Fracking wells can extend over a mile underground. A system like this increases energy production, creates jobs, and natural gas burns cleaner than coal. So this is bringing up a fossil fuel that burns cleaner than coal. However, it uses large amounts of water and can contaminate groundwater. It also can trigger small earthquakes. This system can contaminate all the water over here, as well as farther away. It also can disturb the ecosystem by having an earthquake. Finally, we have wind energy. These are wind turbines. Wind energy works by using moving air to spin turbine blades, which power a generator and produce electricity. A single wind turbine can power hundreds of homes. This is a renewable energy source, produces no air pollution while operating, and is low operating cost after construction. However, it depends on wind conditions, can harm birds and bats, and is expensive to build. However, you can have multi-use land underneath. Here's a farm with some llamas and cows. And the wind turbines are taking up very little space on the ground. Each energy source has benefits and drawbacks. Coal and fracking provide reliable energy but can harm the environment. Nuclear power produces large amounts of electricity with low emissions but creates radioactive waste. Wind energy is renewable and clean but depends on weather conditions.
Hi, my name's Leo Swintek. I'm doing the commercial fishing part of our group project for our passion project. To start, just want to let you guys know that in Minecraft there aren't exactly nets, so if you guys see a bunch of spider webs or stuff like that, that's what that is. It looks pretty terrible, but I tried my best with what I have. So to start, there's a technique called trawling. It's where a gigantic net it like drags on the bottom of the ocean floor. It uproots shrimp, cod, pollock, and flatfish. This is another huge commercial fishing technique. It's used a lot. It causes a lot of erosion on the ocean floor, which can impact predators that use that camouflage to hunt. It can also creates a lot of bycatch. There's a lot of fish that are unneeded that are caught. It can reduce fish populations pretty drastically. Another technique, I have it over here. This white fence is supposed to be a fishing line because it's the best I had to work with. Those are supposed to be buoys. This is a much safer, more environmental friendly way of fishing. They're all dragged behind a big vessel like this. So what they catch mainly are tuna, swordfish, and halibut. These are larger fish. It can stretch for miles. There's thousands of baited hooks. I didn't feel like doing thousands, so I did 6. Sorry about that. Here's some environmental impacts. Even though there's less than, say, trawling, there are still some. There are sea turtles can be caught. Sharks, obviously you don't want any of those to be caught. Seabirds get hooked accidentally because when they dive to hunt, they get caught on those hooks. They can also overfish valuable species because you can't target it. And then Persianing, I don't know how to say that properly. It's Persianing. It's just a boat, a boat makes a circle around an area, and they lead out a line, and it has a thing on the bottom and a thing on the top that closes, and it catches the fish and it drags them. These spiders are supposed to be nets. Sorry. Yeah, here's it catches mainly tuna, sardines, and anchovies. It's like a lot very small fish. You know, you see them everywhere. Here are some environmental impacts. It can catch dolphins on accident, and it can also remove huge numbers of fish at once, which is obviously not healthy for the environment. That amount of change so abruptly is obviously awful for the environment. If we come over here, we have our fun facts. So there's this thing called TEDs for those things that involve nets, like Persianing and bottom trawling. They're called TEDs, but it's just turtle exclusion devices. It's like these little pockets that fish can't fit through, but turtles can. It's important that we have organizations like NOAA, DNR, and the Coast Guard to enforce these laws, because a lot of commercial fishermen will sew up these holes in their nets, and they regardless of the turtle's health, just for profit, which is obviously awful. And these same organizations also ensure that we don't have things like the tragedy of the commons, and that we protect what resources we have, and we prevent overfishing. Thank you for your time.
All right, this is Rudy covering some farming. So first I'm gonna start with this barn I made here. You know, just get in the mood of farming. But let's get to the actual stuff. So I made this free range grazing site. These cows right here, they got some hay, they got some cover, some trees, some water. But this allows animals to graze on grass their entire life. The meat tends to be free from antibiotics and other chemicals. Even though this requires because this requires large amounts of land, the meat is more expensive but generally tastes better. So this is it's a better option than what I'm going to show you later over there. So this is just another one over here for sheep. Lots of green space, trees. The sheep have lots of land, hay. They even got some of the ocean there. But then over here, this is a concentrated animal feeding operation. So this gets animals ready for slaughter really quickly, and because it's crowded, it promotes disease, so they're usually given antibiotics and hormones. It generates large amounts of waste and can contaminate water. I've seen this water running down into the river down there. They're usually fed grains to fatten them up, and the low-cost facilities are usually means cheaper meat for consumers. So then, one thing that could happen is overgrazing. Like over here, let's say a bunch of sheep just wanted to eat this corner and they overgrazed it. I could block it off like this. This is one technique to stop overgrazing, fencing the damaged areas. Another technique for stopping overgrazing is rotational grazing. So move the cattle around. So if I wanted to, I could take this sheep, bring it over here, and I could, if I wanted to, I could move it into this other pen over here, so then it couldn't impact the grass over there, and I could do that with the rest of them too. But it's not a big problem with these sheep. So another thing, so this would also be considered a pasture, which is a managed grassland and fenced meadow used for for grazing livestock. But then a rangeland is unfenced grasslands in temperate and tropical climates that provide forage for animals. So this pig out here, it doesn't have anything that's keeping it fenced in. It can find its own food, can move wherever it wants, and it's in a rangeland. So now if we go back to the place over here, so now we can get to some of the crops. All right, so this is just wheat. So this would be monocrop, which is neat little rows all of one plant. Some advantages of this is it's easy to plant, maintain, and harvest. And only certain types of pests are associated with this one crop. But some disadvantages are loss of habitat and biodiversity and loss of ancestral varieties. And then this would also be an example of furrow irrigation, which is furrows or trenches on either side of crops and fill with water. One fact about this is that 33% of the water is evaporated. Advantages of this type of advantages of this type of irrigation are it's low investment, but and high sediment water can be used. But some disadvantages are it's not efficient on sandy soil, which isn't a problem here, but it's difficult to apply in smaller amounts. Oh, and now it's thunderstorming. But then we also have, up here I have some terracing, which is converting steeply sloped land into steps. This prevents runoff from rushing downhill and carrying away soil. So the crops are keeping the soil together, making it so it doesn't erode. But then I also have planted some windbreaks, these trees on the edges of each crop land to hold the mountainside together as well and prevent the soil from eroding when it's not in use. So then we also have some strip cropping, alternating row crops with cover crop. So you only harvest the cash crop and it keeps the ground covered and reduces erosion. So this would be example of strip cropping, the strips of the crops alternating. And then over here we have alley cropping. So this is planting trees on edges, or planting crops between orchid trees, and the roots of the trees hold soil in place. And then we have some more furrow irrigation right here. But then right here, this would be drip irrigation. I have the water and it's slowly dripping down from up here. This would be the spray irrigation. So it's pumping water through these pipes right here up and then spraying it onto the field, but it's kind of hard to do that in Minecraft, but this is my best interpretation. And the fact about this is 25% of the water, 25% or less of the water is evaporated. An advantage of this is its precise application. Supplements can be introduced into the water, but then some disadvantages are larger upfront costs than flood/furrow irrigation, and the nozzles could clog, so we could get something stuck in each one of these holes where the water can come out. So now I can also talk about tilling. So tilling is breaking up and smoothing the soil to prepare it for planting seeds. So let's just say if I wanted to start a farm right here, I can till the soil or use this hoe here to get the soil ready to plant. So if I wanted to plant these seeds, I could do that right here. So I tilled the soil to get ready for the crops. Developed countries can use mechanization to do this tilling faster, so they can use machines. But it's easy to do, but it can, since the soil becomes bare, it can lead to erosion, and then the term soil impacts soil structure. So now it's getting dark out, but I can also talk a little about pesticides. So we can use this bone meal here for pesticides. So some advantages of pesticides: it saves human lives, increases crop yield and profits for farmers, and they work quickly. So one example of them working quickly is I can just go like this and it'll speed the weed up, and then now it's ready. But some disadvantages are it's expensive for farmers, can harm non-target species, and the pesticides can never go away. They have persistence in the environment. So then another thing I can talk about is perennial crops. So these berries would be an example of a perennial crop. They come back every year. They don't have to be replanted. And so like raspberries, strawberries are an example of this, and since they don't have that in Minecraft, these sweet berries are the closest example of that. So now I can talk a little bit about forestry. So over here, I did some strip cutting. So see, there's this long strip right here where there's no trees. There were trees here before, but I cut them all down. And then over here, I clear cut all the trees. So now there's no trees here, and this can lead to runoff. So some dirty water going into this pond over here. And then if I wanted to do any selective cutting, I could just randomly choose trees. So like this tree right here, this one looks like a pretty nice one to cut down. So I just cut this one down. And then maybe this one right here. This would be selective cutting. And then so selective cutting, intermediate age or mature trees are cut singly or in small groups. But then clear cutting, it's the most efficient, least cost, and the highest profit. And all the trees in one area are removed, but it really leads to erosion and destroys and fragments wildlife habitats, and can lead to flooding. And then strip cutting is the most sustainable timber, or more sustainable timber yield than selective, but not the widespread destruction of clear cutting, and it allows for natural regeneration. So that's all I have on farming.